Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. We're looking at layering, and in this little episode on layering we're looking at jump layering to a tunnel. So this was something that cropped up when I was doing a little bit of training with my guys, and I found that in this scenario where we've got jump, tunnel and this jump here, if I asked my dogs to go from this jump to the tunnel and I wasn't blocking this jump with my body, what happened was that my guys wanted to turn towards me and take this jump. And I actually found that I would say, go tunnel. Now go is my drive cue. So it means go straight on, take what you see, and then take what I've told you. So tunnel. So generally I would use go on a straight line. If there was 3 jumps and then the tunnel, I'd say, go tunnel. So they know they've got to drive straight up. It's also a flat work cue. So I'd ask them, say that on a big distance like this, I might ask them to go just to make sure they're driving on. Now, what I was finding is I used this cue, go tunnel, and because of where I was stood, the dogs were coming over that jump, going over that jump as well, and going to tunnel. So there was 2 things that was teaching me. First off, it taught me that my tunnel cue was not as strong as I thought because they were taking other obstacles and they were obviously using my body position rather than listening to the jump cue. Secondly, it taught me that to use go in that scenario was too general. I needed something more specific. Now, I also have a jump cue, which means take the jump in front of you and jump long. So I found it was necessary for me to switch to have jump and tunnel. So let's look at this scenario a little bit closer and, how it might crop up in a competition and how it actually is layering. Okay. So we've got our jump here, and now imagine this isn't our first jump. It could be that we've come up from a long straight. Easily we could be coming up from a long straight. We could potentially have fallen behind our dog. So we're coming up, dog's coming over this jump. We're perhaps somewhere here. We cannot support that tunnel as much as we want. The next obstacle we want is over here. Now, ideally, we don't want to have to run straight up that tunnel and go all the way around that jump to get to this jump, because we're putting in a lot of mileage for us, a lot of meterage for us unnecessarily. What we ideally want to do is to be able to send the dog start turning and going to this jump. The problem is, as we do this and we start to turn, we open up this jump. Now you might say, well, how is this layering? Because layering usually means there's an obstacle between the obstacle you and the obstacle you're asking the dog to do. So this is kind of this is actually sort of a grey area in layering, but it is layering because the dog is having to run past an obstacle. I suppose you could call it discrimination as well. The dog is having to run past an obstacle, and potentially you're going to be wanting to be here as you're moving to get to where you want to be next. So if you look at it this way, you can see that actually now I've layered that jump, but I want my dog to still go up to that tunnel. This could be especially important if I've got to do something tricky on that jump there, or it's something I need to work. We want our dog to drive straight up to that tunnel without worrying about that jump, and we want to be able to turn and pick them up here. The problem I had was that if I did this, even without turning, my dogs wanted to take that jump because they're so used to using my body position rather than my verbals. So I thought, right, this is something I've got to work on, this is something I've got to train. So I'm going to show you how I've worked this. Now, there's actually a slightly more complicated element of this sequence, which I'll talk to you in the next episode, where I want to actually teach them the difference between turning and going straight up to the tunnel. But on this initial training lesson, we're just worrying about getting the dog to drive up to that tunnel, not worrying about that jump, and us being able to move off to where we need to be next. This could be any sort of obstacle. This could be weaves, it could be a dog walk, it could be anything. It's one of those things where they might have to drive up to a tunnel past something, and you want them to do that without taking something they shouldn't. To begin with this setup, I'm going to help my dog. So previously I tested this. I mean, obviously you could test this to begin with. You could say, right, I'll set my dog up and see what happens if I set them there and I stand here and I ask them to go tunnel. And you might find your dog does it perfect. Great, awesome. When I was first doing this, I found that wasn't the case. So I helped my dog, and this might be a case you need to do if you've got a dog that's inexperienced from driving on away from you, because this is a drive exercise. And it's also a case that If you've got a young dog or dog that lacks confidence, there could be various things. And also if you get a dog that's coming from a system where you handled heavily using motion-based handling and now you're looking to handle using your verbals. So I'm going to start swift up on that jump, behind the jump, and I'm going to stand on this side of this jump but blocking it effectively. I'm going to lead out, I'm going to block it, and I'm going to ask her to jump tunnel. Now that should mean you take the jump, you go straight up to the tunnel. Swift it! So I'm going to be here and ask her to do that. Jump! Tunnel, 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 tunnel. Good girl, get it. Okay, so there was no problem with that. So we're going to do it this time. I'm not going to be blocking the jump. So this time I'm going to be about here, so that my body position could technically mean that jump, but I'm hoping that with my cues she will go straight up to that tunnel. Jump, tunnel, 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 tunnel. Yeah, get it. So that was really good. No problems there. This time I'm going to have my position here, so I'm effectively level with her. So she's got to make all those choices herself. I can't prevent her doing that jump tunnel, that jump at all. She's got to make it all herself. Okay. Jump, tunnel, 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 tunnel. Good girl. Now, you may have noticed I was hardly using any body motion. There's a reason for that. I am trying to perfect my verbal cues, and I want her to be relying on her verbal cues rather than my body gestures. So I am doing this apart from this hand, which means you're going to jump forward and tells her to look forward. I am not doing any body motion as much as possible. I'm standing still getting this. That's important to me. Now, you may not want to do that. You may be, I'm doing a lot of distance handling where I'm going to stand still a lot. You may be a runner. You don't need to do that. You can quite happily use your arms to cue. Here's a tip. When you're cueing the difference between going up to that tunnel and this turn, I would say make sure when you're cueing the tunnel, arm goes out, fully extended. When you're cueing that turn, keep your arm low. And that helps to subtly indicate you want a turn. So that's how we're doing that drive up to the tunnel. Get some good distance. It's a good 10-metre run. So we're getting the understanding that we run 10 metres out to a tunnel. You can see she's driving out nicely. We would obviously do both sides to make sure both sides are proofed. This is actually her weaker side, so that side's slightly stronger, but we'd make sure each side is proofed. And then in the next lesson, we're going to make it a little bit harder, and could be where we see some flaws come in. I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines episode, and if you have, you might like to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon and that'll give you notifications of when new videos are coming out. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.